Today, we're diving into a spiritual practice that makes some really wild claims. We're talking about healing illnesses, traveling through time, and even creating protective force fields, all just by using the power of the mind. So let's get into it. This is Apometry, the art of healing at a distance. All right, let's just jump right into the deep end with the big question that sits at the heart of all this. Can our consciousness actually reach out, bend the rules of reality, and heal someone from a distance? It is a huge premise, so let's see how they say it's done. And look, the claims are nothing short of spectacular. We're talking about rapidly curing psychosomatic diseases, treating serious psychiatric illnesses, and resolving deep-seated addictions. But then it gets even stranger, with ideas that sound like they're pulled straight from science fiction, like spiritual time travel and literally creating protective mental force fields. These are the big promises of Apometry. So after hearing all that, the first thing you probably ask is, how? How on earth is any of this supposed to work? To get our heads around it, we have to start at the very beginning, with this new art of healing. Okay, so the name itself, apometria, comes from two Greek words, apo, which means beyond, and metria, which means measure. So you put them together and you get distance treatment. Now, according to the source material, this whole technique was first introduced way back in 1975 by a Dr. Jose Lacerda de Azevedo. And his claim? He said he received it directly from the spiritual realm during an astral projection. Basically, an intentional out-of-body experience. So how do practitioners actually do this distance treatment? Well, the whole system is built around one central idea they call unfolding the spirit. The entire practice hinges on this idea that our non-physical or spiritual bodies can be separated from our physical one, all while we stay fully conscious. You can think of it as a controlled, intentional out-of-body experience, but with a specific purpose. The method used to make this happen is called impulsotherapy, and the way it's described is, well, surprisingly simple. It really comes down to three things working together. First, you give a very clear mental command to unfold. Second, you project what are described as energetic pulses. And third, you sync it all up with a slow, deliberate count. This mix of focused will, energy, and rhythm, that's supposedly the engine that makes the whole thing run. Now, what's really interesting about Apometry is that it's not presented as some vague, mystical thing. No, it's actually structured around 13 very specific laws, almost like a kind of spiritual physics that they claim governs how these non-physical realms work. Let's take a look at a few of the most important ones. Okay, so the first law, and really the most fundamental one, is the law of spiritual duplication. And just like the name suggests, this is the rule that makes the whole unfolding process possible in the first place. And the law, as it's written in the source, basically says this: every single time you give a clear command for the spiritual body to separate, and you back it up with those energetic pulses and a slow count, a complete unfolding will happen, and the person stays totally conscious the whole time. This is the absolute bedrock of the entire practice. Of course, if you can unfold, you better have a safe way to, refold. And that's where the second law, physical coupling, comes into play. Now, the text here is a little dense, but the idea is pretty simple. It's just the reverse process. You use a similar command and counting technique to guide the spiritual body back and safely reintegrate it. And the source really stresses how important this is, saying that if you mess it up, a person might be left feeling dizzy or just off. So once you have these basic laws of separating and coming back together, the system starts to introduce some pretty advanced techniques. And one of the most cinematic ones is the fourth law, which is all about creating protective force fields. According to this law, a practitioner can mentally visualize a barrier, project energy into it while counting, and create what's claimed to be a real protective shield. Apparently, these are used to protect a space from negative influences or even to contain what the source calls rebellious spirits, which are described as interfering non-physical beings. The text even gets super specific, saying that pyramidal shapes are the most powerful for this. And this brings us right back to that incredible claim we mentioned at the start about time travel. The ninth law covers the dislocation of a spirit not just in space, but also in time. So what it says is, if you command an unfolded spirit to go to a specific moment in the past, while projecting those energy pulses, it will actually travel to that exact point in time. Now, the purpose here isn't for sightseeing. It's meant to be therapeutic, to let a spirit revisit a past event to better understand its karmic consequences. So, with these laws acting as the sort of operating system, practitioners then use a whole range of specific healing methods. So let's go ahead and open up the spiritual toolkit and see what's inside. One of the main tools is chromotherapy. which is all about using the energy of color. Different colors are said to have really specific spiritual effects. Green is for healing and revitalizing. Blue is for calming. And then you have violet, which is claimed to be so powerful it can instantly immobilize negative spirits. And speaking of negative spirits, a huge part of the practice is dedicated to dealing with what the Source just calls the darkness, basically negative spiritual influences. And this leads to one of the wildest concepts in the whole text, something called invasive parasitic devices. These are described as non-physical energy gadgets that get inserted into a person's spiritual body by negative entities. The Source claims they can cause all sorts of problems, from physical illnesses to emitting subliminal messages that fuel addiction, or even causing severe psychological issues. But the ambition here doesn't just stop with healing individuals. Apometry seems to have a much, much bigger goal in mind, something its proponents call cosmic reintegration. It's a truly breathtaking vision. For people who follow this, Apometry isn't just a therapy. The ultimate goal is nothing less than rebalancing all of humanity with cosmic laws and fast-tracking the spiritual evolution of the entire planet. This quote from the source material really captures that mission perfectly. The author writes that the whole purpose is to allow our reintegration cosmic, reconnect us definitively with our heavenly homeland. It's a vision of healing that goes way beyond one person and scales up to the entire planet. So, to just wrap up this grand vision, it's about plugging humanity back into the cosmic circuit, rebuilding a great family planetarium, and ultimately revolutionizing medicine into what the source calls a medicine of fluids. I mean, these are, without a doubt, some incredibly ambitious goals. Which really leaves us with one final thought. Is Apometry, as it's laid out in these texts, a revolutionary spiritual science that operates on some unseen laws of the universe? Or is it a complex and really fascinating new frontier of human belief? Well, that's for you to decide.